If you've come seeking a look at the 2004 film about a freak living in the London Underground, then I'm going to have to disappoint you right here. Not at all confusingly, there are two films with the same name released a decade apart where the one is not a remake of the other. But I am talking about 2014's Creep, written by Patrick Brice and Mark Duplass, with Brice taking directing credits, and guess who the actors are? Patrick Brice and Mark Duplass as Aaron and Joseph respectively. This was a really easy film to remember who's in it and who's involved. But, joking aside, it is a great film. I do love it. It got, a sequel, which I will be covering, so I'm obviously not alone with this. And it's short running time. It's about, I think, 118, 119, all told. Doesn't do it a disservice. If you can tell a concise story that still has a few deviations, there are still a few scenes that you're just like, this could have been shorter. Which maybe some would consider a flaw. If you can't fill a full film length, why do it? But I still think that it was fine in this. It was still over an hour. It didn't drag on. Many would have tried to pad this out to make it a full 90 or even 2-hour film. But this tells the story it wants to in the time that it felt it needed. And I respect that, especially from an effort from two guys, pretty much. That is to be noted. But there's a lot here that's great, like I say, and there's a lot of misdirects that come through. But I think let's give a brief overview of the story first. So we have Joseph, if that is his real name, who lures people in to kill them. Now, in Aaron's case, we know exactly what the premise is. I wouldn't expect that it would be that different each time, but this is a guy who's a compulsive liar and fabricates almost everything about his life, so it wouldn't surprise me if it is a different premise each time. But in this case with Aaron, he says, I need you to make a video so that I can give a message to my son who I will not see because I have the big C. And, he tends to draw in, especially as we learn probably more from the sequel as well, kind, honest, thoughtful people. Even though he is saying, come and film me for a day, have $1,000, you will get a lot of mercenary people. But I think the people he actually bothers to spend time with and connect with are generally nice people. And I think that's kind of a weird, beautiful thing about it in a way. He doesn't want to just have anyone. He wants to have a connection with his victims. Which makes me think, there is a loneliness, there is an attachment disorder kind of scenario in that. But throughout the film, he does a lot of things to, I think, push Aaron's boundaries. He's really sort of testing the water, seeing what he can get away with. What will this guy, put up with before he raises his hand and goes, excuse me, what is going on here? And, again, I think he needs that malleability, that willingness to accept what the hell's going on from his victims. The Peach Fuzz bit is hilarious. He dons the mask and he's doing this little song and dance. And it's great. It's one of the funniest moments in both films, in fact, I would say. He's absolutely brilliant in it. Mark Duplass is very talented, clearly. He plays, it's weird, as soon as he appears, he's playing both warm and unsettling at the same time really well. Just let that sink in for a minute. There are some actors who can play one thing really well at a time and then move on to another. There are some who can do a couple of things at once and it's okay. But this guy is doing creepy and warm, polar opposites really, at the same time, effectively, in a found footage format, so he can't do many retakes and different angles to make it look better. He's just there, right in frame, creeping you out whilst being really friendly. I tip my hat to the guy. But I said we'd get on to some of the clues. And there are a lot here. Right from the start, and okay, we learn later on he was spying as Aaron came up the stairs, etc. But at the start, Aaron is approaching the place, obviously to, meet up, start the thing, and he's not around. When he finally appears, he says, I'll never get used to those stairs. Now, I lived on a top floor, there's only like 3 floors in total, but top floor flat, and those flights of stairs were difficult. And okay, I never really got used to them, but it was something that, I learned to pace myself on and I could deal with. But it's a bit of a weird thing to just say out of nowhere. Especially as it could be implied that, maybe he's been jogging. He didn't need to say, I'm not used to these stairs. That was a red flag in my brain. I think even on the first time watching, something clicked in my brain, but I can't say for sure. It's been a while between watchings. But we have, the fact that he's surprised. He goes into the closet for the hats before they go on the walk to the Heart Rock. And, he's like, oh, twinsies, two of the same hat. Wouldn't you know that if this was your home? I think you would. And it just keys us in to the fact that, this guy does not live at this place. We find later on it's a rental. But, there's so much there that he's giving us that this is not above board. The fact that he changes stories as well so often, it is keeping us guessing as much as keeping Aaron guessing. I've said in other videos, I think one of the things I really love in films is the Chekhov's gun kind of scenario. And we have that here. We have Chekhov's axe. Pretty much first shot as we get to the place is looking at the axe in the stump. And as we find later, after Aaron goes, no, I'm out, and gets all the little DVDs in the post from Joseph and goes to meet him. And he does end up being killed by the axe. So we have it set up and we have it pay off. I think, that was Film School 101 in execution in this. But there are so many good moments that, really are there to unsettle us. The scene when he's disturbed in the night. And I noticed in a few scenes how really tall Patrick Bryce is. But there's a scene where, he's in his apartment and, he's hunting around. He's like, is someone here? And he stood there in frame. He moves and we see Joseph behind, just standing there. And that, even on a rewatch, because it's been long enough that I forgot about it, my skin really crawled and I was very unsettled by that. I kind of had the little shiver down the back and I had to check my surroundings because I was a bit wary all of a sudden that there might be someone just stood in a doorway. It unsettled me so well. And, again, massive hat tip to the guys involved here. Considering this is a 2-guy team, they had a project that they really wanted to do. They created this story and they really wanted to get it out there about this sad, lonely guy who ends up being a serial killer in the end. And they did it so well. They executed it beautifully. They managed to get a sequel greenlit out of it. And they got it distributed as well to the world before all that, of course. So I, massively respect this. But I do want to end with the ending. It was so sort of surprising, but also not surprising that there would be oh yeah, I've lured you out to somewhere public, and even there I've been able to, kill you because you thought that you were safe. There is a level of respect right there. Even at the end, we see him kind of you trusted me, and I love that. We will always have that. You still believed that I would do something good. And I love that bit of the film, the fact that he has that trust. But what I hate is the fact that it then follows that with the cheesy jump scare. It just comes out of nowhere. And yeah, given the character, we should expect it, but he's no longer doing this for Aaron. He's no longer trying to freak Aaron out. So it just felt kind of forced and just a way of maybe that was a production note saying please end on a jump scare because that's what we do in 2014. But we do see the fact that he has copious amounts of recordings as well, which sets up the idea that this is a long-term thing and sets up a thing in the sequel where he says exactly how many he's killed by the time he gets to Sarah. But like I say, the sequel is its own thing. There is enough material there to cover a video. There might even be more than this one, to be honest, because this is really just a scant overview because it's done so well that giving all the beats, giving exactly what happens would be a disservice. And I think, if me talking about it has rekindled the flame of, yeah, I really like that film, go and watch it again. You've got plenty of time to watch stuff like this now. And watch the sequel in preparation for a few weeks' time, so we can all be on the same page. But I do hope you join me for next week's. It's going to be another sort of meta horror. That's what I'm planning on, unless something weird happens in between. You'll find out. But yeah, please join me for that next time. And until then, as always, thank you for watching and take care.